In the second part, we start working with the springs. This is our old compressed spring block. Here we have 4 types of springs. These are exactly the springs we will need. What are we going to do? Of course, we can buy a new block, but the prices for them are not low, and it's not guaranteed that new springs will last longer than good old ones that we will repair. And since we are talking about repairing a sofa at home and with minimal costs, it's better to take only part of the new block, and replace the part of the old block that cannot be repaired. Here we methods. First, we will insert part of the whole block, and second, we will install, specifically screw in, several rows of new springs. First, it is necessary to remove the wrapping. For this, we will need pliers and a sharp flat knife. When the clamps on the wrapping are overlapping, that is, like this, it is convenient to remove them with pliers. We grab the edge and take off the clamp. So, we remove the clamps and set them aside. We will need them later. Now, we remove the wrapping. The wrapping is intact, not broken, but slightly bent. Like all of them after use, we straighten it with gentle movements and set it aside for a while. What are we doing here? We are checking how many intact rows we have with the springs. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There is already a broken spring here, so we won't keep that. 4 rows from one side, 1, 2, 3. And 4 rows from the other side. In the middle, there are several intact springs, but we won't need them. Since there are broken springs around them, there is a high probability that these springs, although they seem intact, will also break quickly. We will leave 4 rows on each side and will work with them further. To disconnect the springs from each other, we will need pliers and a tool called a swivel. The easiest way to make such a swivel is from an old spring, giving it this shape. To make its handle more comfortable, it can be coated with polyurethane glue. This results in a very useful tool for this job. So, we are removing 4 rows by unscrewing the spirals that connect the springs. First, the edge of the spiral needs to be unraveled with pliers. After we free the edge of the spiral, we make a loop, insert the swivel, and the opposite edge of the spiral also needs to be freed. And this is how we unscrew the spiral. We set the spiral aside, we will need it later. We turn it over, and here we have remnants of cotton. They must be removed because they will wrap around the spiral and interfere with our work. So, we remove the remnants of cotton from this spiral and perform the same operation. We remove 4 rows here and 4 rows from the other side. Useful tip. To make it easier to unscrew the spiral, we can use wire cutters. We need to cut the broken springs that we won't need and remove them. This will make unscrewing the spiral much easier, as there will be less to twist. So, the pieces are also a very useful tool for this job. Now that we have removed 4 rows, we do the same on the other side. So, we have disconnected this part and that part. We separate the middle and remove it, as we will no longer need it. These parts were facing the center, and we are turning them to the edges. Now we take the good springs that we will install in the middle. And we will place these on the edges. This is what will be assembled now. For the rows that are missing, we will gather them from separate springs. Next, you will see how this can be done. Here, everything is simple. We align them with each other and connect them with a spiral. If the edges of the spiral are deformed, we cut them off. In no case should we cut them like this, instead, we direct them downwards and cut them off like this. Because it can snap back strongly. When you have tightened the spiral all the way, use pliers to compress its edge so that the spring does not unwind under load. In the same way, we install the bottom spiral and attach 4 rows on the other side. So, we have tightened the upper spirals. We will install the lower spirals when we flip this block. What do we do next? We are missing 4 rows of springs. That means 2 rows on each side. We will not wind them first and then put on the collar. We will do this together with the collar. Because with 2 rows, it's hard to make a mistake. But when you need to wind more rows, it can be difficult to maintain this distance. Therefore, it is better when the springs are installed on the collar first, and then the spiral is tightened. We will first place it, take additional springs, and hook them along the edge, all 5 pieces and 1 here. Then we will attach it all with clips, and afterwards we will tighten the spirals. Then everything will be fine. We need to ensure that a good block of springs remains in the center. Therefore, we will install 2 rows on one side and 2 rows on the other side. How to check if they are good or bad? You need to stretch the spring and compress it. Then, we observe whether it returns to its original shape. We also check for twisting. If the spring has a defect, it will remain deformed when we do this with it. If everything is fine regarding stretching and twisting, then this spring can be used. This is how we check all the springs and then hook them. So, we start from the edge, take the clips, and first place the outer springs. Then the central springs. If necessary, they can be easily moved. So we have 5 of them. We install them here and here. Here are 5 on the edge and 1 on each side. We do the same on the other side. So, we have already assembled that edge, placed the springs, and secured the edge with clips. Here, too, we have secured it with clips. Now we insert 3 more springs. We install the clips in such a way that it will be possible to wind the spiral afterwards. Now we are going to screw in the spiral. The first row. It might seem like there's not enough space for these springs, but we'll fix that. So, first, we'll screw in 1 spiral. And we screw in the last spiral. Now we can place the clamps along the entire top part. So, all the clamps are in place. We've got a flat spring unit, with no dips or other irregularities. The springs and coils are working well. After finishing the top part, we turn it over. On the bottom side, at the joints of the block and on the outer springs, we also screw in the coils. We do all of this the same way as shown before. This is how we finish the spring unit. After we disassembled the first spring block, we tackled the second one. There were no broken springs in it, but we still worked on it. We removed the wrapping, split it in half, and placed the outer springs, which had minimal usage, in the center of the block. In other words, by splitting it in half, we turned those 2 parts around. We connected it with coils and assembled it with wrappings. Thus, we now have the springs that were minimally used. The ones that were heavily used are located on the edges. As a result, the second block has also improved compared to how it was before. Since this block was installed in the back of the sofa, and it experienced significantly less load, after this repair it can be placed on the seat frame. All the best components currently in the sofa, the frame, springs, and the less worn mattress, will be installed on the seat. This is because the main load is placed on the seat.